Hello, everyone. My name is Philip Palumbo. I'm the host of the Palumbo podcast, where we introduce and interview some of the most successful founders to learn about their experience and how they got to the top. Today, we have with us Peter Ward, who has over 30 years experience in the technology space, specifically working with Microsoft. He currently owns his own company as a founder and CEO of SoHo Dragon for the past 15 years. And we're looking forward to learning about your experiences. So thanks for your time today, Peter. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Philip. Pleasure to be on the show.
All right, good, good. So the first thing I always like to start with is give me a sense and our audience a sense, what influenced you to start your own business or to be a founder of your own business?
I came along to be doing a lot of the SharePoint, and then come in 2010, the economy wasn't too good, and basically I worked so hard there that they laid me off with a few others, and it was just a bit like, well, look, if I'm going to am I ever going to do this again? I'm going to do it on my own, on my dime, not someone else's dime. And that's just really what I wanted to do. But I also didn't want to be like a quintessential contractor. I wanted to set up a company that could scale. Okay. And here we are 14 years later, we've got over 200 employees in the company.
Wow. Good for you. Good for you. So your whole idea about being a founder is to be be controlled in your destination and not.
Well, yeah, probably a bit more controlling a destination, but also you always, in any career, whatever you do, you're always in control, or you like to be in control on that. But it was just a bit like if I'm going to work this hard, then I want to do it on I want to do it on my dime, not somebody else's.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's funny. My wife, when she actually got her master's in business, or undergrad in business, and she started working for a business owner at the time. And she comes from business owners. And one of the things that she couldn't stand is that she was making money she was working for somebody else to make money, and it always bothered her. So she became a teacher. and then she married me, and I'm founder of a business and all that type of stuff. And terrific. But I totally know what you mean. When you have your own business, you're a founder of your own business, you're really working for your clients and who you're servicing, which essentially means you're working for yourself as well. So that's really great. In terms of challenges, what do you feel that some of the biggest challenges that you've faced?
Putting in structures in place, okay, like over the 14-year journey so far, it's getting the company shifting from one person to 5 people, and then from 5 to 10, and shifting gears, and then putting in structures in place so like when you're a small company, you're working in the business. But as the company grows, you need to shift so you're actually on the business. So you can't be doing everything, and that's that's quite been a challenge, because your DNA is all over the company, and you've got to be delegating. And what you might think is clear is not clear to any other people.
So in getting to that mindset, so from 0 to 5, like you said, you're working more in the business, but then as you start to grow, which we call growing pains, which, growth is a good thing. I mean, that's a big reason as we think about our business and our service, many of us do want to grow, because if you're not growing, you're dying. But when you grow, it's important to make sure that you're growing the right way. And from what I'm hearing from you, Peter, is a lot of that is delegation is the only way to do it. And you're working more from like the 50,000 foot view as the CEO versus being in the weeds. Does that make sense?
That makes sense. But to do that, you need to put in structure, like things which I'd always dismiss, things like an org chart in a company. I always dismiss that. But we only had an org chart about 4 or 5 years ago. Having position statements, like in a small company, people always say, "Oh yeah, everyone wears many hats," which is all very well. But if everyone's wearing these many hats, you get confusion, because people are just doing everything.
Right. So as far as the org chart and getting organized from that standpoint, did you have a coach that helped you through it? Did you read it?
We did actually. We'd actually have a coach to actually help doing that, yes. We also introduced this business methodology called Traction, the EOS.
Traction, excuse me?
Traction. Are you familiar with Traction?
I am not.
Okay. So it's called Entrepreneur Operating System. It's got nothing to do with technology. And it's really about setting goals and milestones and having accountabilities in the organization. And that was very instrumental because when we hit about 1.5 million, the company was almost like blowing a gasket. Okay. And we implemented that, and that's where we say, settle things down. And then that got the company growing.
So you feel that once you went through the traction process, and you feel like that's really helped your business a lot?
Totally. That was a very good, so we say, turning points of getting structures in place.
Have you ever heard of the Rockefeller Habits, the book?
No, I have not. No. Talk about that.
Yeah, something similar to that. It's really great. It's literally exactly that. It's a lot about us that being methodical about goals and meetings with your team, and everything's literally listed out. As you can imagine, as you grow, that's something that you definitely want to do. So as far as your core principles as an owner of your company and philosophies, what would you say that is?
When you say the core principles, I would probably go along the lines of like, I don't want to sound too cliche, but you always want to try and do what's best for the customer, and best for the employees, and everyone like does that. But I would like to sort of like say, like probably almost like being kinder than necessary. I.e., like I was on a call last week with one of my employees, and we did a IT implementation, and they spent quite a bit of money on us, but the project didn't go live for like 3 months, 3 or 4 months after. And I said, don't you think we should have known that? Don't you think we should have like known, had their back and helped them out? Like they spend all this money, but they clearly got stopped with making us go off. And it wasn't our fault. And the response of, well, that's not our fault. It was their fault. I totally agree. It was not our fault. It was their fault. But don't you think we should have really had their back to sort of like say, where are they being stopped? Why, how can we help them on this? Okay, so that's that bit where you actually just giving them, being kind and necessary, being of service, even though when that means that, okay, we're not going to make money on these on some of these calls, but we just want to help you nudge this project over the finishing line to
Right.
get this live.
Right. Right. And that's the difference. I think, Peter, when people are always thinking about, oh, I got to close this, I got to close this business, I got to close this business. When you put your help hat on, help, and use that word in your mind as you're serving clients, are you here to help them? Sometimes it may work out from a profit standpoint for the business, and sometimes it may not. But at the end of the day, it's really about helping people and servicing people. I mean, that's what we're all about. I mean, I know I get the whole business idea and growth of business and profits and making money. We'll talk more about that. But at the end of the day, like you're saying, a core principle and value that you have is really helping your clients. It's all about the client. And in the end, that'll define your business.
Yeah, so totally, yes.
Any other philosophies, Peter, that you have as it relates to business?
I would say it's not so much to be making decisions, it's making decisions not to do things. Okay, as entrepreneurs, there's a little bit of a case where we can do this, we can do that, we can do this. I would say focus on what you're good at. Okay, so like Starbucks is known for one thing, which is
Coffee.
exactly, but they have a whole bunch of other stuff. Okay, but they're really known for the coffee. But their go-to-market strategy is coffee. Okay, but as entrepreneurs, you always sort of like you're always crunching these numbers on the back of an envelope. Well, we could do this, we could do that. Focus on one thing and be disciplined on the whole thing.
There's a great book out there. There's a great book out there too. The One Thing. I don't know if you read it.
No, I haven't. I should.
I gave you two books today.
But these are the whole things. It's like the challenge is not not being what to do, what not to be doing. Okay. Okay. And we keep on overcomplicating things. I keep on looking at processes we're doing. And thinking, why are we doing this? I don't know. This is broken. Let's add more processes to the processes which we're not even using. But how does that make any sense?
Yeah, what makes Elon Musk brilliant is how he takes such a complicated thing, but he's able to break it down in such simplicity, which is still complicated to us, obviously. And that's what makes his manufacturing plants work the way they've done and the success that he's had. So I agree with you. And, just to like further that point, the one thing is not only just focus on the one thing, but be great at the one thing. When you focused on just the one thing, you have then the time just to focus on that one thing and one thing only. When you start to do other things, it takes away the focus of that one thing, which is probably the main thing that's servicing the client with. So I would say really peeling that onion back, right, as much as you possibly can to dive into the details of that one thing that you really want to do great. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And the other key thing I say is get curious. Like with
Yes.
this client, we say with this client, don't judge, get curious. Okay. And like with this client that didn't go live on the project, okay, get curious. Why was it? Why were they challenged? Okay, on this. And then curiously, they actually at the start of the project or during the project, they didn't have the right stakeholders into the project. And my question is, well, didn't we pick up on this? Okay, and it's like, well, no, we didn't. Okay, well, don't you think we should? Because we keep on saying, oh yeah, we understand the business well, we understand your business well, we understand your needs, but it's almost a bit like, well, yeah, we did exactly what on the surface, we did exactly what they wanted, but we didn't get curious and ask ourselves, why haven't you got other stakeholders on this project?
Yeah.
Okay, and that was and the same, and that should be going on with why when customers aren't signing off on SOWs, get curious on why. Okay, when we're talking to customers, I will always say, what are your three most important things on this project? And then they'll give me a list. I say, why are those important? Okay, and then it's at digging in deeper, and then you can really start addressing the customer's needs.
Yeah. Love that. Love that. I agree with you. Culture. How do you think about culture within your company? And what do you do to increase? What do you do to have a great culture within your company?
We do one-on-one. We do weekly one-on-ones. Okay, with the line manager. Okay, a one-on-one is not a sales opportunity. A one-on-one is for people to understand what people are doing, where they're being stopped, what's working, what's not working, whether they should.
You do weekly one-on-ones with who?
I do that with my people who report into me, but those people should do it with them as well.
Was that something you learned from your coach?
That was what we did. We've done that before. Okay, but that was with the traction, with the one-on-ones.
Right.
And that creates just more of a flow of information. We do actually get people who join us, and they say they only hear that from their manager when their timesheet is not complete. Okay, so that's not the role of a manager. Okay, then on that. Okay, so that's the key thing as well. The one-on-ones. Okay, get to know people, get related. One of the things I realized with COVID was that I was terrible at supervising people. Okay, so as a result, we would hire graduates from these dev camps, and they never would hang around. And we would always say, well, what's going on here? Why, well, we put a lot of time and effort into this. Okay, and we didn't really get much value. And when we spoke to these people, they felt, well, they wanted to join a more exciting firm or whatever. And what we realized was that, particularly in the US office, was that they required supervision. Like your mum supervises you, you need to put your socks on, wash your hands before dinner. That's supervision. A graduate requires supervision. Okay, I'm rubbish at the supervision, but I'm very good at management. At management, I can give you a task. You can get the task done. If you can't get done, I'll support you on the task. There's a big difference. Okay, so as a result, one of the things we declared was that we can't hire any graduates in the US office because we don't know how to supervise them. Okay, and let's just declare that it's not ideal what we want, but that's where we are right now.
Got it. Got it. Is there anything you do to enhance culture within your company so employees feel like I love working here?
We do the odd social events as well. Our India office had a Bollywood theme night. I can send you some links on that one.
That's cool.
That was quite interesting. We also do like on Sunday night, there's an email that goes out. It's a scheduled internal thing. It's a virtual coffee. So it picks up all the employees at random. Okay. And it's basically, it's a matchmaking. And then it asks them to schedule a coffee. Now, that's a very simple thing.
I like that.
But it's sort of like it's an informal process because everyone complains there's silos in the company. Right. And then you get HR involved and it feels like too contrived. You need to speak to these people. But by just having these 15-minute chats with someone who you don't know in the company, you get to know a little bit about their projects. And the power of that informal word and conversation normally is actually quite powerful. Where someone says, have you considered doing this? Okay. And it's those little things which are incremental, which basically builds into something big.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. So Peter, as we all have our businesses, we have profits of the business. And then we look at those profits and we say, okay, well, you as the owner, you could take that money, founder, put it into an investment account and invest it, whether it's, other businesses, real estate, stocks, et cetera. Or you take that money and reinvest it back into the business and perhaps get a certain return on investment capital that you wouldn't be able to get with stocks and real estate or owning another business. How do you think about profits and the reinvestment of it or the reinvestment in yourself?
As any owner of a company, you try and make as least profit as you can because it gets taxed. Okay. Right. Okay. So you got to be ethical on that. On I would generally say just don't, you as an owner, you're always going to have good years, you're always going to have great years, and you're always going to have bad years. So you basically need to keep money, aside. So when the sun is shining, okay, that's when you fix the roof. Okay, because when it rains, okay, when it rains, okay, that's when you need that money. And the last thing you want to do is go to a bank. I will tell you, go to a bank and ask for money when you're having a bad year, because they just don't, that they're very risk averse, okay, or you end up sort of borrowing at some crazy interest. There's nothing wrong about being boring.
Love it. As far as what measures would you say you used to show growth of your business?
I will definitely say obviously revenue, employee headcount. What we actually have is we've actually got some KSIs, key strategic
Yeah.
indicators, which we review every month, every quarter, and that's the things like obviously if it's a 10, it means that and we'll basically grade ourselves, not just me, but basically about the company brand, about employees' positions, our relationship with partners. So obviously this should be as high as possible, like a 9 or 10, okay? But if it's low, then like generally when those are high, there's growth, okay? A lot of people think, oh, we need better growth. We need to spend more on SEO. We need to hire more salespeople. But what I will tell you now, when you look at these KSIs, when they're 8 or 9, you get growth. When they start going down to 5 or 6 in some levels, that's when the growth slows down.
Yep, got it. Got it. Love it. So you have these measurable things that you measure on a quarterly basis, these
We
KSIs.
do, yes.
Yep. And when you look at these KSIs and you look at certain measurements, if something's below grade, what do you do to fix that?
Well, we actually have every week we have what's known as a level 10 meeting, which is a leadership meeting. And then we'll discuss, well, why exactly did this happen? And it's almost a bit like, okay, maybe we hired the wrong person here. Okay, so why did we hire the wrong person? Well, we didn't do our due diligence. Okay, it was a forced hire. He wasn't managed or whatever. Right. So that's the source of the problem. Okay. And therefore, the problems are always going to be varied. But the key thing is to review, inquire, and see, right, how do we, it's bad enough having mistakes, but it's crazy when you've got the same mistake occurring multiple times.
Do you ever feel like you have too many meetings?
Well, yeah, we have cut down on that. On that, I wouldn't say too many meetings. I'd say there's enough meetings on that. Yes, I think where we're remote, there is a bit of problem. You can tell why I'm pausing a bit here. There is a lot of meetings. Okay, and I just think sometimes there's a lot going on. Okay, on that, I have tried to cut down on some of the meetings and made them bi-weekly.
Yeah.
On
Yeah.
that, that's one of the things.
Has that helped a lot, making them?
Oh, that has actually helped. Yes. And also removing people from meetings. Like sometimes you don't need people in meetings.
Yeah, no, that's a big thing I've found as well.
Yeah.
And sometimes when you do have a lot of people, it takes more time, and when you have like versus the core people in the meeting, that really decision makers that could really drive things.
People can't speak, and people just don't speak up as well.
Yeah, yes, exactly. So how do you think about or what is your approach or mindset to your personal wealth management and growing your personal wealth?
Personal wealth, I would say probably definition of wealth, definition of being rich is to save 10% of your earnings. Okay. And that's like after your 401k, the mortgage, everything else, the vacation, just say take 10% of it. But to me, there's two definitions. You've got being rich, which is basically having enough money to pay your expenses, and then being wealthy, which is basically putting money aside to put in assets. And I think if you can put the money aside to be putting in assets, that's when you start becoming wealthy, because your wealth is generating more wealth.
Where did you come up with these definitions?
I don't know if it's just your upbringing, your data upbringing. I grew up in London, ordinary middle class family. It was always don't spend too much, save your pocket money. Okay, can you afford this? No, you can't. Well, let's not. Then and how are you going to pay for it? On that as well, on that. And it's just not living beyond your means.
And Peter, when you think about the business though, right? When you say to yourself, okay, I wake up this morning, I'm not saying you think of it this way or don't think this way. I'm just curious if you do that 10% is, you put you put money in your 401k or pension plan, whatever you have set up through the business, then you put 10% of your earnings into assets, right? And you're doing that year after year after year, but then you do have this large asset called your business that's 70-80% of your net worth. Do you say to yourself and wake up, say, oh gosh, my business is doing revenue of 10 million and I have EBIT of a million. If I sold this thing today, it said I'd sell it at 15 times. So I'm worth 15 million. Plus I have this 10% here and this real retirement accounts here. Do you ever see yourself?
Yes, but the problem with that question is, what do you do next? Okay, because you can say, because like, yes, I have had that thought. Sometimes I have had that thought before, but it's always been like, yeah, great, I sell this software company, which is quite good. What am I going to do next? I'll set up another software company. Okay, and then I've got my hands tied a little bit, which is all about like non-competes and everything else, because any acquiring company is not going to want you to basically set up shop down the road. I would have to do something very, very different. Or because as you know, with a service company, anyone acquiring you, there's normally an earn-out in some capacity. Okay, so it's almost been like, okay, so maybe that gives you a bit of a runway. Maybe that does give you a bit of a runway. But you're absolutely right. Like what you don't want to be, you don't want to be in your 60s and you've got a lot of your wealth tied up in one asset, which it might, because also, even though it might be a strong asset, it's difficult to sell. A lot of businesses can't sell because the owner's DNA is all over it. There's certain, the owner has got your top 5 accounts have got personal relationships with the owner who attended theirs, who attended it's a family, there's connections. So it's difficult to extract that business from the owner to make it like a proper business, which is transferable. But that's kind of like what you do. You've probably witnessed this multiple times.
Yeah. So as a certified exit planning advisor, right, one of the things that we learn and questions we always ask people, and I'll ask you this, is we like to ask business owners. I've asked myself this question too: is my business transition ready today? Right. In other words, if I were to sell my business because I had to or wanted to, is it truly a transition ready? In other words, is it selling for the best multiple based on the attractiveness of the business, or is it trading at the largest EBITDA margins versus my competitors? And all this stuff can be measured, right? So I can literally go to you, Peter, and do an analysis and say, Peter, you're trading at a 5-time multiple with margins of 15 and your competitors at 7 times with margins of 20, here's why. So do you have you ever thought about your business from that standpoint and saying to yourself, okay, I'm not looking to sell, I may sell 5 years, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, but is my business transition ready if I were to sell at some point? And if it's not, starting to think about what you need to be transition ready. So your business is always transition ready. What are your thoughts as it relates to that?
Well, you're right. It's almost a bit like when you buy a house. Okay, you got to fix it up. Okay, so you've got to do certain things. So you're absolutely right. Getting it battle hardened, like the house. Okay, the kitchen needs to be new. Okay, the garden, the roof needs to be fixed. So those are the kind. I do actually think about those. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
On that, and also that's the whole thing with like things like org chart. Like I'm sure,
right?
I'm sure questions you probably got like 20 questions you ask a founder on. Okay, you're thinking of selling. Can you just tell me a bit about this? Right, with all of these sales, what's your personal relationship with your percentage of your business? Now, the moment this person, I attended the person's bar mitzvah, the wedding, that's my school. It's like, wait a minute here, that's not transferable.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right. The number one thing is really the owner the business being so dependent on the owner. That's the number one thing by far, because that's not transferable. So that's a key thing, I think, for all of us that are running our businesses, is to be cognizant of that, for sure. But it's all good stuff. How about work-life balance? Right. What is your view as a founder as it relates to work-life balance?
Well, we're actually organizing I'm actually organizing a digital detox retreat, actually. Okay. And like the challenge you've got as an entrepreneur, you seem to think that your employees are going to work as hard as you.
Right.
Okay, which is a mistake, because if they did work as hard as you, they would be entrepreneurs. They wouldn't be employees. Okay. On that. So things like setting boundaries. Okay. And like what we've got females in the company and like who are in management positions. And like when the reality is like when it comes to say domestic duties in the house, normally that's fall on the mother. Okay. So she's taking calls at the customer at night. Okay, that's really coming at the expense of the family. Okay. And the big myth is that you can have it all. You can't have it all. Okay, it comes at an expense. So there's something about setting boundaries, and a lot of people think setting boundaries is saying no. Okay, and missing out. It is saying no, but it's also basically saying like we're going to have some ground rules here. Okay, on this, and nothing. We can't have everything being a priority. If emails are being sent at like after like 7 o'clock at night, unless the person's expecting that email. Okay, or we know there's a little bit of an emergency going on. Don't expect it to be responded to before 9 a.m. the next day. Same at weekend stuff as well. So we like set boundaries and set expectations within the company. Okay, because at the end of the day, we're not paying our staff enough for them to be working 100 hours a week.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. I think that's really important. And as far as for yourself too, Peter, as far as work-life balance as a founder of a business, I mean,
Well, I yeah, well, I
how do you set boundaries for yourself?
I there is there is that. Like, I will. Don't get me wrong. I will take my laptop on vacation. I'm going to Fort Lauderdale on Friday. I will be taking that. Yeah, I will be on email, but I have like said like I'm off all calls. Unless this is an emergency, and I will be checking in now and again, but I'm not on calls. And again, that's the key thing about the delegation part.
Right.
If you if calls can't and meetings can't occur unless you're in those meetings, then you haven't delegated.
That's right. That's right. And last question I have for you, Peter, in terms of your legacy, what would you like your legacy to look like?
In business or personal?
I'd say, or both.
I don't know. I would probably say, it's like, we had a good company, the company was good. Well, it's one of these things where I would probably like say that I'd like to think that when the employees who were with the company a long time, they said they were glad that they were in the room when it started and when it ended.
Love it. Love it. Awesome.
That's what I'd probably say on that. Yeah.
Love it. Awesome, Peter. This is terrific. Thank you so much for your time today. I really, but anything else that you would like to add that I missed, perhaps?
Well, thank you for being on the show. Okay. So let me ask you this. What are the three mistakes then? I suppose not to end on a negative note here.
That's okay.
What are the three mistakes that owners make when trying to sell a company?
When they go to sell their company?
Yeah, or yeah, what are the three mistakes?
Yeah, we get you just right. So number one is owner dependence. Like I said before, the business is completely dependent on the owner. And because of those reasons, it's not as transferable as others, number one. Which really relates to, customer relationships. So concentration of customer relationships. So if you have, 50% of your revenues coming from two clients, that usually will bring down multiples. So that would be number two. And number three is more industry, right? Related. So depending on whatever industry that you are in, like for example, let's say in the wealth management industry, if you're charging below industry levels in terms of fees, that could hurt you in terms of overall EBITDA multiple. So those are the three primary things I would say, but the two primary ones really is owner dependence and customer concentration.
Yeah. No. Yeah,
as you can imagine, right? So if I was going to buy your business tomorrow, if two of your largest clients are 50% of your revenue and you're the one that really has that strong relationship because you went to the baptism and all these other things, right? So, and I go to take over your business, if I don't have if I have a rough start with them for whatever reason, that's going to be problematic. But those are the two key things that, we all should be thinking about.
Yeah. And that's not profound. That's kind of like common knowledge as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's common knowledge, right? But just having that conversation with business owners, and just because a lot of business owners, the other thing too, is that they're always so entrenched in their business that they never take their head up out of the sand, take a step back and say, gosh, if I did, is my business running optimally relative to my competitors down the road? And you have to ask yourself this question constantly, because that's a big difference. And if it is, and if you could only imagine, right? It's like, if you're overweight, you get into a diet that you can live on for the rest of your life, and you continually to do that, you're going to live a very healthy lifestyle. If your business is not optimal today, but you get it to optimal level, and that's how you live it for the rest of your life, of that business life, it's going to make a substantial business, especially as you grow. So it's understanding that right off the get-go and then implementing policies to make sure it's like that. And then it's like giddy up from there.
Yeah. I think one of the problems you've got, and I've had this problem, is that that if I do it myself, it'll take 5 minutes. If I have to explain it to an employee, it'll take 15 minutes, and they won't do it as good as me. You need to get out of that framework.
I got to tell you, when I was first, and I've been doing this for 24 years, when I was at Merrill Lynch, I did everything by myself. I had an assistant at the time, and she did things that she could have done for me, but I just didn't trust that she would be able to do it. And I didn't want anybody talking to my clients. Like, that's how bad I was. And then when I started to learn about delegation and I started to tiptoe into it, Peter, and then all of a sudden I'm like, all right, when I get a new client, I'm going to let my assistant call the client, introduce themselves, and gather all the information. When I did that, I'm like, oh my gosh, a huge weight was lifted off my shoulder. I say, I can't believe I always say, like, if I took a piece of paper out, a blank piece of paper, and I drew a circle, right? We're always comfortable in this circle that we're in. And until you break out of that circle to create another outer boundary, now your circle is even larger. So the more you could step out, get uncomfortable, step out, get uncomfortable, step out, get uncomfortable. And the larger that circle becomes, the better your life you're going to lead, and it's all about trying to create that uncomfortability. You know it. I mean, you can't, unless you're uncomfortable, you're not moving forward. You're not growing. And I don't care what anybody says. Every day I get uncomfortable, waking up at 4:30 in the morning and going downstairs today and going to my gym and working out starting at 4:50. I mean, you know how uncomfortable that was. I wanted to jump back into bed, but I did it because I know I'll feel great all day and it's very healthy thing to do. And as business people, it's great for our minds. So that's kind of think about it.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah, on that. Okay. All right.
Peter, thank you very much for your time today. I really appreciate it. You evaluated to my audience. So I thank you for your time today very much.
No problem. Okay. Thanks, Philip. Enjoy it.
Thank you. You too.